Welcome to this first edition of Photo Bros. We're here today to provide you with insight into a brand new camera system that we're going to talk about today, and also in the future to bring you different information on all sorts of great photography products, tips and tricks, and different events and news that are happening in the photography industry that you might be interested in. Today, we're provided with something kind of cool. What is it?
So what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at Olympus's OMD EM5 III. So this is their brand new camera. It came out November 26th, and it's part of their new lineup, a part of the continuation of the 5 series. It's took them a little while to do that, but it's here, and it's just really exciting to have a refresh of the system.
Nice. And one thing that's pretty cool about it, as I was playing around with it, I haven't played a lot with the Olympus camera system, so it was fun to kind of play around with and get familiar with. It's kind of a robust camera.
Yeah. When you speak about being robust, I mean the Olympus system from the 5 series to the 1 series is actually weather sealed.
Nice.
And if you get the appropriate lenses with it, the weather sealed lenses, you'll have a fully weather sealed outfit. And we're talking negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
It's just short of immersion in water, which I've seen some people do, which I don't recommend doing because that will ruin your camera. But I've used mine. I own an EM1 Mark II, and I've used it out in the rain. I've used it out in the snow. I've sseen a lot of reviews where people just dump them in the snowbanks and just let them sit there. And I've seen people shoot Lake Michigan because we live on the lake shore here. And the mist coming off of the big waves has frozen over at the ends of people's lenses, and they've had to wait for them to thaw out just so they can go back out and start shooting again. So
unbelievable.
When we talk about robust, it's no joking matter on that.
One thing that we like to do with Photo Bros is we're going to be reviewing and testing all sorts of different products. And so today we chose this product because it just came out in November.
Yep.
And it's kind of newer to the market, if you will. So not everybody has seen it or picked it up, held it, shot it,
or heard about it.
Or heard about it. Some people haven't even heard about it, right? Because you know how it is with marketing. Sometimes it takes time. So since I specialize in portrait photography, we decided to consist our videos of portraits for the most part because we can do an equal parameter. We're using the Westcott FJ400s. They have a universal trigger system on them, which allows you to basically take that trigger and put it directly onto an Olympus, take it off the Olympus, put it directly onto a Nikon, take it off there, put it directly onto Canon, directly onto Fuji. But then on the Sony, it does need a little adapter. That's the only one that it kind of has a hiccup on, is the Sony. But it works flawlessly on the Sony. It just needs a little adapter for the top. But nonetheless, absolutely phenomenal strobes.
Yeah, and the only reason it needs that adapter is because there's a special pin set on what they call the TTL hot shoe that allows it to communicate properly with that system. So that's the only reason why they have that. Otherwise, yeah, like Kenny said, they're flawless. It's a really excellent system, and I've used a lot of things from Policy Buff to Nissan. You've used some other things as well, and this is why you switch to that system. So yeah, it's just nice to be able to give us this equal par for like a tit for tat kind of thing when we start messing around with portraiture and adding lighting, because that's something that you typically don't get a chance to see. Is you'll have you'll try to operate under the same parameters, but now you've got a light that allows you to maintain one variable, and you can just change things between.
Yep. And it's TTL. It's full TTL, which is great too. So if you're a TTL shooter, it's fantastic. We always recommend to shoot manual because you should control the light. It's much easier for you to be an artist when you're controlling the light yourself versus the camera doing all the controlling.
Yeah. It's nice to have those automatic features, and this is, we'll go back and forth on opinions. Shooting full manual is the way to go. Having the TTL is kind of just that crutch, if you're just learning the system, to just to work with that and be able to have something to utilize so that you're still able to create beautiful imagery. But again, you're going to have the most control with full manual mode on both the lighting and the camera.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. So first off, this camera, as you can see, when we put this transmitter on here, it's just that simple. You just go ahead and you click it into the Olympus mode, as you can see in the video here. And when we're shooting, you're going to see us just trying out a few different angles of a portrait and just kind of standard portrait poses, just to keep it simplistic. We're not going to do any sort of crazy creative stuff just that we couldn't replicate over and over. So we're trying to keep the variable as similar as possible. As an avid portrait shooter, this was a really fun camera to shoot with. I really enjoyed the way it feels in my hand. This has the battery grip extension on it, which is a little better. I have bigger hands, so for me to be able to, grab onto it with a little bit more meat is nice. I like the feel of it. It's a very balanced camera in your hand. And as far as shooting goes, the EVF was really nice on it. The display was really clear. It was a very fast responding autofocus system. User error on my part, I didn't know how to set it to the very small, fine pin autofocus point. So, focusing on Justin's eye, as you can see in the pictures that we're going to show you, might be a little bit out of focus because it's just doing the whole face. But later, Justin showed me how that feature works, so it is capable of it. And one thing that was really interesting about the camera is it had a lot of really fun preset features of different looks, basically like kind of almost like a photoshopped finished looks or Instagram type finished looks that the camera can do in camera, and we're going to show you some of those. So let's go ahead and start off. Let's take a look at these first pictures here that we've got from the different pictures we took. So as you can see in this first picture here, this is a portrait of Justin, and he's super sharp. We're running the lights on each side of him, so we're doing a 2-light setup here. And I think your skin looks really, like the complexion's captured really well. I think it's just a nice, clean
The color's really nice.
capture.
And we didn't really do anything to these. We took these right out of the camera. We did shoot RAW and JPEG, and I can tell you that, between both files, the JPEGs look pretty clean. Just to mention, we are using the Pro 25 f1.2 lens from Zuko. So it's their Pro Series lens, and it's a 50mm equivalent on the Olympus camera system.
And this camera is limited to 2/50th of a second, so it doesn't have the high-speed sync capability. So we did have to shoot it at an f4. We weren't using the f1.2 because it was just too bright. It was just way too bright, and we couldn't control that. So,
and if it does have a high-speed sync feature, that's something that I still am not 100% familiar with the camera system, because it's very deep. It allows you to do a lot of fine-tuning. But what we could find just quickly on the fly was that the shutter sync speed, the maximum was 1/250th of a second. And that's what you'll find with most camera systems. Now, Kenny's running a D850. So he has his high-speed sync will go much higher, and that's what he's used to shooting with. So we had to kind of dial things back just to kind of work within our
But as you can see from the picture, it's still a very usable setting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for studio anyway, I mean, it's not like your depth of field is that important.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a big loss. It was just, we just had to make some micro adjustments.
And typically I shoot at f8 for most of my studio stuff. So being able to go down a little bit lower just opens up a little bit more depth of field for you.
This next picture is a picture of myself that Justin took in one of the actually finished modes. What do they call the art modes?
Yes, so there these. What's fun about the Olympus is that they come with art modes. So the art modes, what you'll see is there's actually a little spot on the dial for the art modes that says ART. And you have, again, those are kind of like the Instagram filters that are built into the camera. You can customize them and change them to whatever you want them to be. And one of my favorites is it's one of the black and white film modes. And there's 2 of them in there. But I like the grainy black and white is what they call it. Now this one, I didn't shoot with the typical blue. I like the blue tint to it, but there's purple, green, the typical sepia tone. But this was neutral black and white because I wanted to keep it nice and clean for everyone to see it. But I did 2 different modes. I did one where I did natural high key, so I just overexposed it a little bit. And then I did one underexposed because I wanted to show like the 2 different moodiness.
Which is this one right here.
Yeah. And I was just shooting Ken, messing around with getting some close-up shots of some detail stuff, and I just thought it was really cool. It kind of reminded me of an Alfred Hitchcock film. And that's what I love about black and white.
And it's grainy. It's purposely grainy, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's like an old vintage look, and Justin is really pretty talented with doing those kind of shots anyway, so it was kind of right up his alley is his style of shooting.
And one of my things is I shot film in college, so for me it's kind of like kind of going back to my roots a little bit. And that's what's nice about it.
Now here is something that we wanted to kind of play around with, was a little bit of the dynamic range of this camera. By shooting a single light, coming from the right side of where Justin's standing, this is allowing us to see a little bit of the darker blacks and the contrast, and to see if we keep that sharpness inside the image. And it did a great job. We zoomed in really tight on Photoshop. It did a really nice job. So, it had great image quality.
And that's a lot. That's indicative of a lot of the pro lenses. Even it doesn't have to be the f1.2. You know, anything from the 7 to 14, the 12 to 40, the 4150. They're all really sharp. Olympus spends a lot of time fine tuning their lenses before they go to market, and they want them to work hand in hand with that sensor. So they're saying light falls at a 90-degree angle hitting that sensor, so you're getting like this really nice coverage and sharpness all the way to the edges. And that's something that's really important for a lot of your photographs.
And in general, because we're speaking about portraiture, you know, primes are the way to go. I mean, if you're going to invest in lenses, don't invest in the zoom lenses if you're going to be a portrait photographer. They're great on the fly, and they're great for like a event situation or action of sports or capture. But you know, if you're going to really isolate to portraits and really focus on that, you might as well pay for that tack sharp lens and the quality of color that you're going to get out of that lens. I mean, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to have a lot more glass in it, and the capability is going to be much better out of that lens, and as well as your depth of field is going to be much more significant. So you know, that's a pretty big attribute when you're doing portrait photography.
Well, and the nice thing is, again, it goes back, you know, they are weather sealed. So the nice thing about having that is, like, if you can shoot in different conditions. I've actually been looking a lot at some MagMod photos lately. And they've been shooting stuff in the rain. And the nice thing is you can, like, you're blasting the rain with these lights, but you can be in the rain with your camera, and your couple can be in the rain too. So you can, it just adds a whole nother level to your photography if you're willing to take that step. Yeah. How many people want to go out and risk shooting their camera and their gear in the rain?
Right.
You know?
The tricky part's the lighting.
Yes.
So the camera's fully capable, but it doesn't mean your lights are capable. You better really do some research. My recommendation would be to make sure you throw some serious plastic waterproofing or some sort of thing over your lighting setup, because you might be out a couple $1,000s just for having fun.
Yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that could be a little rough. Now, as you can see through these other pictures, we'll kind of go through these a little bit quicker. You know, we've got great, you know, capture of the lighting here on Justin. You know, again, nice and sharp image. You know, he looks really true to color. These are just slightly touched in Lightroom. So we basically took the stock JPEG right out of the camera, and then we just slightly added, you know, like a little bit of shadow reduction or addition, just depending on which angle he was at, because we didn't change any of our settings in the lighting. We just basically went as consistent as possible. So let's go into those art photos. There's a whole plethora of them. So let's pull that up real quick.
So what I did is, what's unique about Olympus is it gives you an opportunity to bracket to do different bracketing modes. So I can go into my, like your color profiles, you know how there's a neutral, a vivid, you know, a monochrome, stuff like that. You can actually bracket all of those different settings. So I can take one shot and I can choose which color profile I love out of those shots. So they do a similar thing with the art filters, which I think is a brilliant thing, because I can sit here and I can bracket all my shots. And you know, there's like 16 plus different art modes in here, and it's just fun to be able to see all of them at once.
Yeah, so he took one shot of me, one single shot, and it applied it all the way across the board, and it created like, I think, 20 some shots. I think there's at least 20 here. Yeah,
because what I did is I added a couple of those profiles as well, like the neutral, the muted, because I was trying to add just some variety outside of the art filters.
Yeah. In today's creative world, I mean, everybody's an artist, and everybody has their own style and their likes and interests. Sometimes maybe wall graffiti or something would be really cool with some of these art modes, because it might enhance it, or maybe the structure of a building, or, you know.
And that's the biggest thing with it, is it just, what I love about it, it just gives you the opportunity with one shot to, you know, cover a wide span. Like, you can find a couple of them that you like, and it's perfect for someone who likes to do Instagram. You know, when I'm selling this camera at the shop, you know, and I know there's a young person or someone who likes to use Instagram, it's nice to do everything that you can in the camera, so you're not spending a lot of time editing. So this is just one of those things that you can use to do that. In fact, I like the grainy black and the grainy film #1, but I use a blue tint to it because I like cyanotypes, and I'll actually just go create images right out of the camera just using that, because once I dial it in with the exposure compensation the way I want it, darker or lighter, kind of like those examples I showed you earlier. Once I take that shot, I don't edit those in Lightroom. I just go ahead and put those on my website for purchase and able to sell.
So let's just kind of talk about the overall feel of this camera and our overall thoughts, first impressions. First impression of it.
Well, first impression, when I got it out of the box at the store, it was nice it had the same form factor. I mean, this is the original right here. This is the EM1, the EM5 III without the grip, as you can see. It held the same body structure as the first version and second version. The thing that they did change was it's more composite than it is magnesium alloy chassis, so it's a little lighter, and that's actually a big thing for most people want it because it's a little lighter of a body, right? Everything is saving weight because a lot of hikers, travelers like to use it. The improvements to the body as far as performance are excellent. I mean, it's everything that it needed to be because it's just a half step down from their EN1 Mark II. And that's like the performance factor. So it's got a better processor, which means the autofocus is going to be better. The sensor is also better. They have 121 cross-type points, which means that you've got these little X's on on every little point on your sensor. So there's 121 X's. So what's looking for is horizontal and vertical lines. And so it's going to help you with contrast. It's going to help find lines right away, and then phase detection, just to dial in your focus like that.
And it's got in-body stabilization.
Yes, and that's a really big thing. The 5-axis in-body image stabilization is actually 6.5 stops in this camera.
Wow.
So that means you can take some really slow shots. Now with my EM1 Mark II, I've done 2 seconds handheld shooting waterfalls, which is really great. I've seen a lot of photos of people take them at 10 seconds, 8 seconds.
Yep.
It just means that with this one, because of the better processor and the 6.5 stops of image stabilization, you can start to push that where the version 2, you wouldn't be able to do that as well as you can with version 3. So now you can start to push that 2-second stop or the 5 seconds, something like that. Or I'd be a little bit more apt to do that. In fact, when I was shooting the pictures of you, and I was doing that high key shot with the grainy film.
Yep.
It was actually at a slower shutter speed. It would be nice to kind of look at that. I know it was slower than a 30th of a second.
Wow.
And those shots, I can tell you, are
which is pretty slow.
Yeah.
That's pretty slow.
Yeah.
So overall, my opinion on it was a very nice camera. It's got great structure quality. The usability was pretty good. I mean, the menu system is very unique to Olympus, obviously, just like all menu systems are to every camera system. It was a little bit to kind of play around with it. I figured it out for the most part. There was a couple interior details that we had to have Justin kind of go through to find those settings to make sure we had it correct. But obviously, if you owned the camera, you're going to take the time to not just quick mess around with it, but actually spend some time to learn it properly. As far as shootability goes, I like the shootability. I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that it didn't have high-speed sync. As a portrait photographer, it's critical that your camera can perform all the way up to 8,000th of a second. I mean, it's just, in today's day and age with the strobes and everything, you're paying a lot of money for that type of equipment, and you want it to use that to its maximum. So your camera can actually hold you back on your strobe equipment in that regard too, because it can't perform at the same level. But now granted, this isn't meant to be a professional camera either. So
this is more for the intermediate user.
This would be an excellent, and that's where I was going to go with it, is this would be an excellent intermediate camera for somebody getting into lighting, getting into photography in that regard, or portraits, where they want a good quality camera, but it doesn't need to have all the maximum bells and whistles. Sure, that would work for them, for sure.
Well, and it'll still work for most portrait photographers, but when I am looking at this camera, I have customers come into the store. Really, this is for the intermediate user, the beginner, or the advanced shooter who's not a portrait shooter.
Yeah.
Right. It's more or less like someone wants to travel, they want to go on vacation, they want something more than a point and shoot, but they want something less than a DSLR because, let's be honest, I've got a lot of customers who have traveled and flown to Africa, to New Zealand, to Australia, even to Alaska, and the last thing that they can take is, they can only have like a 25-pound bag.
Oh, sure.
And I've hiked up mountains in Colorado, and I know that, you think 3 pairs of socks, right? and 2 pairs of skivvies, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that it's all those ounces add up, and they add up real quick. So it's just really nice to have. Again, this is how the package comes. This is called the weather kit, the weatherproof kit, and this is a 28 to 300 millimeter equivalent. So for most people, this would be equivalent to like a 10 times to 12 times zoom on the camera, and it's completely weather sealed. So that's kind of the nice thing about it, and it's got touch shooting, which is a nice thing. So that's like your cell phone. So it's this really nice cross between big SLR and your cell phone. You kind of marry those together, and you've got this guy right here.
It's a beautiful product.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and this review that we've done today. We've got lots more reviews to come in the future. And we look forward to you. If you are interested in seeing more videos, you can always click subscribe on our channel. And we look forward to seeing anything that you would like to see in the future. Go ahead and comment down below and leave us a note.
Yeah.
And we'd love to give you feedback or give you our opinions on things.
Or if you have any questions in regard to the system, like if you want another like an in-depth breakdown or things that you didn't see that we didn't mention, you know, this is something that we're growing, but we're doing it for you guys. We're passionate about this, and we just want to share our passion with everyone else out there.
That's right.
So it's you know, everything is welcome. We just want you guys to be happy.
Yeah, that's right.
And learn something along the way.
Thank you for watching this edition of the Photo Bros. For all of your camera equipment and accessory needs, please contact the Camera Shop of Muskegon.